Assemblyman Wright, what did you hope to accomplish with your initial legislation?
I presume you're talking about the Amistad
Yes.
legislation. What I hope to accomplish is that, I found, especially when the Slavery in New York exhibit came out that was put on by the New York Historical Society, and when they talked about slavery in New York in particular, it kind of blew my mind when I thought about it. In that most people just think of slavery in a Southern context. They never think about it as having been alive and well in New York. And what really blew my mind as a New York State legislator, as an assemblyman, person that goes to Albany each and every week, votes on various pieces of legislation. Slavery was abolished here in New York in the year 1817. It wasn't totally abolished until 1827. That they had to gradually eliminate slavery in New York because it was so good, I guess, for some people, especially some of the rich folks who were using this I guess, pool of free labor to build whatever needed to be built, whether it was the Capitol, whether it was the various courthouses here in New York, or some of our big historic structures, and then so on. That it had to gradually be phased out. So then I said, well, the history of New York has never really been told. And I thought that it would be important that we establish this Amistad Commission so that we could get the conversation started, and so that we can make sure and mandate that slavery is taught in all of our public school systems, not only in New York City, but throughout the state. The real, true story of slavery. And that was the genesis of why I put forth this piece of legislation.
What do you foresee coming to fruition as a result of Project Brownstone's efforts that you didn't see before your collaboration?
Oh my God! Listen. When I put forth this legislation, when it finally passed, I never had any expectations whatsoever for the legislation, much less the aftermath. Some kind of way, people found out about the piece of legislation, and thank God for Project Brownstone. I mean, when these folks came to my office, and other folks had come to my office talking to me about this legislation, because, I mean, my job is that of being a legislator. I know how to legislate. I don't necessarily know how to do the other things that come after. But what is needed and what was needed back then was that we needed a community-based organization, regular folks, to carry the baton. I'll make the analogy that it's almost like a relay race. I may have gotten it started legislatively speaking, but now Project Brownstone has been the key ingredient, the motivating factor in terms of pushing this piece of legislation into its next steps, into its next heats, if you will. What they've done has been nothing short of unbelievable, and I expect a lot more because they are just that good in terms of getting the word out, getting the message out that the Amistad Commission is alive and well. It's around, and we need to do something with it so that we can take it to the next level. So I didn't have any expectations anywhere, and it's just now, of course, my expectations are over, above and beyond, simply because Project Brownstone is now involved.
What do you see this movement doing for the community as a whole outside of the schools?
Everything that we do comes from education and comes from our schools. So that's where it all starts. But where else does it start? Where else does it go? It goes to the home life. And if we can integrate the curriculum that we're talking about, integrate some of the learning processes that we're talking about, and whatever support mechanisms we can gain from our home life, which education has to always be supported by our home life. If you don't have strong parents getting involved in our in a child's education or in our educational institutions, and everything just goes by the wayside. So I I hope to gain a whole full-scale re-education process, which is essentially, to a large extent, what the black diaspora needs. A lot of things we have to unlearn, a lot of the bad behavior. If we can learn about our history, I would venture to say that 9 out of the 10 kids on the corners here that we have know nothing about slavery in New York. And once we know our history, we become stronger as a people.
I'm here to tell you, God's angry with you. I wouldn't be burning no church down if I were you. Last night, I